5.3. Setting the way forward. The indispensable first step to getting the things you want out of life is this. Decide what you want. Ben Stein. I'll go anywhere as long as it's forward. David Livingstone. It takes no genius to observe that a one-man band never gets very big. Charles Garfield. Where are we going to go? Just as we live life going forward and not backwards, so business is lived going forward. It is an important role for managers to set the way forward for a firm and to answer the question, where are we going to go? In this section, we will consider what role accounting may have to support managers to do this. Planning in our own lives is what we aim to do and how we are going to get there. Planning for a firm involves managers thinking about what they aim for their firm to do and how their firm is going to get there. Firms themselves do not have aims or objectives. Only the people within firms have intentions, things they intend to do. It is an important part of being a person to have dreams and desires and aims for our lives. So firms are full of people with their own aims and objectives. These will be personal to everyone, and these aims are likely to be different and often conflict between different people. If we are flatting with just one person, then there is one relationship between the two of us in the flat. This one relationship can be difficult enough to manage at times. If we add an extra person, so there are now 3 people living in our flat, how many interpersonal relationships are there? Well, there would be 6 potential relationships. Let us say the 3 flatmates are called Michael, Sally and David. There are now 3 individual relationships between Michael, Sally, David and Michael, David. Potential relationships also exist between various social combinations of 2 people with the other individual of these 3 flatmates. For example, Michael, Sally might be old high school friends from North Rockhampton High School in Rockhampton, and as a social combination might sometimes relate to David, who went to Heights College, another high school in Rockhampton, and just across the road from our Rockhampton campus. David and Michael might be both doing an accounting degree, and as this social combination might relate to Sally, who is doing an architecture degree. By going from 2 people in a flat to 3 people, we have 6 times as many potential relationships. Life is potentially getting a lot more complex. If we have 4 people living in our flat, there are 25 potential interpersonal relationships. And if we have 5 people, there are 90 potential relationships. If we have 7 flatmates in our flat, the number of potential relationships increases to a staggering 966. That's right, nearly 1,000 potential relationships. Of course, the number of actual relationships existing within a flat of 7 people at any given time is likely to be a lot less than this. But still, you get the idea. Life quickly gets a lot more complicated in flats when you add in more flatmates, and the potential for conflict between individuals increases markedly. In the same way, as organisations get bigger, the number of potential relationships between people in a firm increases greatly, and everything becomes a lot more complex. And the task of managing all these relationships in a firm becomes much more difficult. Setting objectives. Not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. Albert Einstein. One key to managing a firm is to seek to get everyone singing from the same hymn book, to work together rather than tear each other apart and working at cross purposes to each other. How do managers do this? How do managers plan for a firm? How do managers lead a firm and bring together a group of people to work together for a common purpose? Managers could sit down in their office or perhaps at the beach with their laptop and write down some objectives for their firm. They might consider the role of their firm from a wider social perspective, what a range of people who have an interest in their firm might want from their firm. This might include equity and debt providers to their firm, as well as employees, customers, suppliers, competitors, regulators, taxation authorities, and the general community. They might then write down a few qualitative aims, such as to produce certain high-quality products at a competitive price, to provide interesting, challenging work for employees, to not pollute the surrounding environment, and so on. Yet we know there is little point in setting vague, purely qualitative goals. For example, in our personal lives, what tends to happen when we set qualitative goals such as get physically fit or lose weight? Well, what tends to happen is precisely nothing. We do not get more physically fit or lose weight. What we need are intermediate goals, such as I will walk from home to work and back 3 times a week for the next month. We need clearer, more precise, quantified goals. Then we have something to aim for in the short term, something that can guide our immediate actions and decisions. We can also tell whether we have achieved our goals because we can measure how we have gone against the target or goal. The same applies to firms. Managers need to set objectives for a firm that are clear, precise, and quantified. Quite often firms will state their objectives in their annual report. Ryman Healthcare is a company that develops, owns and manages integrated retirement villages in New Zealand and Australia. Ryman Healthcare does not view itself as a purely property development company, but rather a company that focuses on caring for older people. Our mission remains the same as it has been for the past 37 years. The care we offer has to be good enough for mum or dad. Our purpose is to provide the best of care for our residents in beautiful, sustainable homes. Dr. David Kerr, Chair, Ryman Healthcare, 2021 Annual Report, pages 2 and 10. Ryman Healthcare then quantifies these objectives. Growth in underlying profit is a key metric used within the business to measure our trading performance. This measure incorporates our 4 earning streams: care fees, management fees, realised resale gains, and development margins. Our medium-term target is to double our underlying profit every 5 years. This equates to annual growth of 15% per annum. We are building across 12 sites, up from just 4 sites 3 years ago. We have 13 sites in our land bank, providing us with a great platform for growth. Gordon McLeod, Group CEO, Ryman Healthcare 2021 Annual Report, pages 23 to 24. These objectives are precisely quantified. They involve accounting numbers, underlying profit growth rates, and physical numbers, the number of development sites and sites in the land bank. Firms will often include accounting measures of profit or other measures of performance in their objectives, as well as physical quantities. It is usually important to measure achievements of firms quantitatively, that is, in numbers, so that the objectives of a firm and the extent to which they are achieved are clear and precise. This helps objectives to be clearly communicated to those who will need to contribute to achieving them, and to those people outside the firm who are interested in what is really going on in a firm. A key idea behind planning is that we can do things now and over time that can affect things in the future. It is often not possible to make changes in our world today that will have an impact today. We often cannot suddenly change our career one day. There may be a small issue of retraining and of convincing others and ourselves about our capacities in this new, untried career for us. Or suddenly alleviate suffering in Africa due to the ravages of AIDS. Cures and treatments take time to develop, which then take further time and resources to make available to those suffering. Or suddenly create a top 10 listed New Zealand company specialising in the retirement and aged care industry. This took Ryman Healthcare well over 20 years to achieve. But there is one thing we can do today, and that is to dream about doing it and what it might take to turn those dreams into reality. It is possible for us to have a lot of tremendous dreams and ideas and yet have no commitment to seek to turn them into reality. This is not what planning is about. Planning is about having dreams, but also straining for ways to turn the ideas flowering in our minds into reality. Indeed, the strength of planning is this. There can often not be a lot we can do to change things in any major way today by doing something today. However, there is often a lot we can do today and tomorrow and the next day that can make significant changes in a few years, if we have the focus and direction a sensible plan can give us. We can start to retrain today with a view to changing our career in the future. We can save and invest today with a view to achieving a degree of financial independence in the future. And we can care for young children today with a view to seeing them grow to full adulthood in the future. These plans start with dreams. We can see plans as essentially the process of turning dreams into reality in the future. If nothing else, plans require us to value the future and not just the present moment. The dreams and plans in 1984 of Ryman Healthcare's founders John Ryder and Kevin Hickman, such as the care we provide must be good enough for our own mum and dad, are now greatly influencing the lives of thousands of residents in Ryman Healthcare's retirement villages and rest homes in New Zealand and Australia, as well as the lives of their relatives. It is also adding value to its equity investors, which includes my 3 children and the investment arm of Ngāi Tahu, one of the major Māori iwi or tribes, and to a range of other stakeholders. This is the power of planning, and it is a key function of managers of a firm. In the context of a firm, there are things people can do now and over time that can affect outcomes for the firm in the future. Managers need to lead people in their firm to do those things now and over time that will help the firm achieve outcomes in the future that will meet the expectations of various interested parties in the firm. We have seen in this section that planning is what we aim to do and how we will get there. The best plans in the world are not much use unless we do things to make sure we get to where we are planning to go. This is the control function of management, which is how we keep things on track in a firm. We will discuss this function of management in the next section. 5.4. Keeping things on track. Coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. Henry Ford. Keeping things on track is an important function of managers of firms. People have their own personal motivations and aims. These may or may not align with managers' plans and their ideas of the way forward for a firm. Also, plans and focusing on the way forward is all about the future, essentially about our dreams and ideas about a future that has yet to blossom into reality. There are many things we do not know about the future, but one thing we do know is that it is uncertain. The future is full of surprises, full of the unexpected, full of things we have not planned for or anticipated. In this section, we'll see how accounting may be able to help managers keep things on track in a firm by holding people accountable for aspects of the performance of parts of a firm. We'll also discuss how firms are not machines, but are full of people with their own dreams, aims and purposes, and the implications this has for keeping things on track. Responsible for results. We are much beholden to Machiavelli and others that write what men do and not what they ought to do. Francis Bacon. Managers need to keep firms under control. It is not good enough to simply set the way forward and communicate it and then simply let people get on with it. managers need to make sure their firm gets to where they are seeking to go. How do they do this? Can accounting in some way help them do this? Accounting can be used to hold managers accountable for costs, revenues, profits, or return on investment for various parts of a business. This is called responsibility accounting, where aspects of the performance of parts of a firm are expressed and measured in terms of accounting numbers. Managers can then be held accountable for aspects of the actual performance of parts of a firm. If the accounting numbers are meaningful measures of what is going on in a firm, then this can work well. However, if they are not, if they can be adjusted or manipulated in some way to tell a story about something that is not really going on in a firm, then this is not so good. Indeed, it is less than not so good. If responsibility accounting is being used in a firm, then to the extent accounting numbers are not meaningful measures of a firm's economic and business realities, then responsibility accounting is not helping managers control a firm. All it is doing is giving managers an illusion of control. The firm is not being kept on track. Having the illusion of control is usually less helpful than doing nothing to control a firm. All it does is help convince, at least to some extent, managers and others that things are on track when in fact they are not. Reality will always catch up with us eventually. The misuse of responsibility accounting might allow a firm to seriously deviate from the way forward set by managers and significantly delay the responses by managers to correct and control a firm. Getting time on our side. It is an immutable law in business that words are words, explanations are explanations, promises are promises, but only performance is reality. Howard Ganeen. Do not get me wrong, planning is a very powerful activity. Planning allows us to get time on our side. Time can be a great enemy in life and in business. Time relentlessly ticks by and disappears. We can never go back in time. Time spent, time past, is time gone. Several years ago, my father died a little short of his 91st birthday. A few years before that, he attended a school reunion lunch at Prince Alfred College in Adelaide, which happened to be on the day of his 82nd birthday. He had a great time, sitting next to the headmaster and receiving a presentation pen for being the old boy that had travelled the most distance to attend the lunch. He had flown from Wellington in New Zealand. There were 295 people at the lunch, which was limited to old boys of 60 years old or more. Dad had kept up with two school friends over the years, both of whom were also turning 82 at around the same time when he caught up with them when he visited Adelaide. Since that time, all those three friends from their school days have died. Time passes. More than 30 years ago, when my father turned 60 years old, I had just started my first full-time job and I took him out to lunch. I asked him, what was it like turning 60? In a way only someone in their 20s can ask. Dad said, yes, I'm 60. It's gone so fast. I still feel like I'm 25, but I can see my body has got a lot older. It has gone so fast. Time is relentlessly passing. It waits for none of us. It is all very well for managers to set the way forward for a firm, but plans mean nothing except to the extent to which they influence actual outcomes for a firm. Actual outcomes are all that matter. Reality is everything. Plans, like good intentions, count for nothing unless accompanied by consistent and sustained action. Otherwise, all that happens is that time simply passes. For this reason, the control function of management, keeping things on track, is critical for management. I said earlier in this chapter that managers are in the driver's seat of firms. They are not passengers. Planning and control are key aspects of the role of managers in the driver's seat. To a large extent, it is accounting that can provide managers with a steering wheel, brakes, and accelerator to allow them to drive their firms. Accounting is central for managers to manage their businesses, to be able to know what is really going on in their firm. That is, to the extent accounting helps managers connect to the reality of their firms. Your challenge in this study guide is to get a sense of the extent to which accounting may help managers connect meaningfully to the economic and business realities of their firm, and the extent to which it may not. The close partner to planning is control. We need to measure actual performance promptly as it occurs and compare it with our plans. This is to ensure our plans do indeed influence and drive outcomes for our firm in the future. A key to ensuring people carry out the objectives for a firm is to make them responsible for them. Managers at various levels in a firm will need to make a series of operating decisions focused on the efficient use of a firm's resources in the short term. These short-term decisions can be expressed in a budget, which is simply a short-term plan expressed in dollars, that is, in terms of money. Budgets are usually for one-year periods, as this ties in with the annual external reporting cycles of most firms, and also often for monthly or weekly periods, as this provides a sufficiently short-term focus to ensure the plans are being met. What happens can then be compared to the budgeted outcome, with any differences, usually called variances, clearly identified and focused on by managers. Various aspects of the performance of a firm can be compared with budget, or a predetermined target, which can then form the basis for doing something to bring actual and budgeted performance back into line with each other. As firms get larger, they generally get more difficult to manage. Responsibility accounting can help managers control a firm by breaking an organisation into bits with its own budgets and actual results. Variances can then be identified and responsibility for correcting them be given to individuals. The key to doing this is to quantify our plans into short-term budgets, measure actual performance as it occurs, say weekly or monthly, compare this with what was planned or budgeted, and identify variances between budgeted and actual results. Variances between budgeted and actual results can be expected. The future is very difficult to predict, and unexpected things are likely to happen. Once variances are identified, we need to think about what we are going to do about them. The key for managers in deciding what to do in response to variances of actual performance compared to budget is to carefully identify what is causing these variances. Generally, variances could be the result of operating problems that are within managers' ability to influence, or at least attempt to influence, such as unexpected increases in certain costs of a firm, fewer sales to customers than expected, or problems in the operation of a warehouse. Uncontrollable factors such as poor weather, a pandemic, or changes in exchange rates, which managers cannot influence, but they can attempt to limit their impact on a firm. Errors in planning, where it becomes apparent that the plans are not realistic in some respects. These can occur due to changes in some external factor, such as the cost of a commodity that is an important input into the business, or can be due to poor original planning, which is not uncommon. In such cases, the best approach can often be to change the budget or plan. Firms are not machines. Leadership is getting other people to do what you need them to do because they want to. On the wall of my son's scout hall, 1st Karori Group, Wellington, New Zealand. Now, firms are not machines. We cannot simply press one lever and expect something will then automatically happen in a firm. It might be nice if life was that simple, but it is not. Firms are made up of people with their own intentions, aspirations, and dreams. It is critical to remember that any accounting function in a firm used to help keep a firm on track in respect to its plans and budgets involves interacting with human behaviour. Good old people. People are everywhere in business. We need to never forget this. Believe it or not, people will not simply buy into a plan, align their personal goals to that plan, and happily get on with applying all their efforts to achieve the plan. As an illustration of this, let us consider the aims and objectives for ACCY111 Accounting, a first-year introductory accounting unit I once taught at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand. These aims and objectives were set out in the unit profile, which stated, "This section sets out what the lecturers would like you to learn in this unit. The actual aims and objectives of the unit will be the aims and objectives you have." The aim of this unit is to give you the opportunity to gain an initial understanding of how accounting can help us to better understand and interpret the economic and business realities of firms. How should we as students of this unit react to this statement of the aims and objectives of the unit? Do we say, "Great, let's get on with understanding how accounting can help us better connect to what is really going on in firms"? Well, maybe. In the pre-unit survey for this first-year accounting unit, I asked people, what do you expect to get out of doing this unit? This question gave people an opportunity to tell me about their aims and objectives in doing the unit. As you might expect, there was a wide range of responses to this question. This first-year introductory accounting subject was compulsory for 95% of students in the unit who are completing a business degree. Students' aims and objectives in the unit were greatly influenced by the university context for the unit, and many were focused on passing the unit to enable them to complete their degree. About 10% of students were not sure whether they wanted to major in accounting in their business degree, so a key aim for them in doing the unit was to help decide whether they wanted to study accounting further. Also, many students were interested in gaining a basic knowledge of accounting by learning a few facts about accounting to add to their bank of knowledge of facts about various things. Quite a few students expressed concerns about dealing with numbers, as numbers aren't my strongest point. So they were focused on making sure they successfully negotiated any assessment on the numbers side of the unit. Occasionally in the pre-unit survey, students referred to how they might experience the unit. For example, "Hopefully I will find it challenging yet fun." Such comments were invariably couched with words like "hopefully," which usually indicates they think this would probably not happen in the unit for them, but they would like it to. Quite a few students referred to learning something about accounting, for example, better understanding of what accounting consists of, as if accounting was some sort of disembodied activity that could be learnt about independently of its business context. Very few students, talked about being able to use accounting in some way. For example, understanding the basic principles of accounting and how it is used in many businesses, knowledge of accounting methods and applications in small to large businesses, and to learn basic accounting principles and practices. It might also help me understand my boss's work better. People brought to the unit a range of different personal intentions, hopes and aims. Many were disconnected from the lecturers, that is, my stated aims and objectives for the unit in the unit profile. Provide students with an opportunity to gain an initial understanding of how accounting can help us to better understand and interpret the economic and business realities of firms. Does this suggest to you that everyone will simply read the aims and objectives for the unit in the unit profile and get on with achieving them? I do not think so. This is because everyone in the unit is their own person, with their own reasons for doing the unit and with their own aims and objectives. Managers will formulate plans for a firm and set the way forward, but firms are made up of people who will need to be the ones to carry out the plans of managers and bring these plans into reality. These people might have different ideas to managers. Because people are not machines, so firms are not machines. People in firms have a range of reasons for working in a firm. Their primary objectives might be to earn money, advance their career, do as little work as possible, meaningfully contribute to customers' well-being, or a complex mixture of a range of motivations and objectives. And these may change over time depending on their personal circumstances. These aims and objectives will be personal to everyone, but it is the role of leadership in a firm to influence the personal agendas and aims of people and to seek to encourage individuals to adjust and change their personal objectives to those of the managers and of the firm. In the context of a unit, lecturers are leaders, and so they are dealers in hope, to borrow the words of Napoleon at the beginning of the chapter. In Act 11059, Accounting, Learning and Online Communication, my leadership role as a unit coordinator and lecturer is to set up the learning environment, including materials, interactions with students and assessments, to support the aims and objectives for the unit. Because most students have a high level of buy-in to the grading system at universities, the assessment structures used in a unit are a powerful means of influencing people's behaviour. In the same way, managers in firms need to support people in several ways to align their personal goals to the aims and objectives of the firm. For example, various reward mechanisms can be adopted to encourage people in firms to align their aims and objectives with those of the firm. Such a process is called goal congruence. Accounting may be able to assist managers to do this as they seek to keep things on track in a firm. Conclusion. This chapter has been about the role of managers in firms and how they need to understand reality. Accounting has the capacity to help, or perhaps hinder, managers to do this. Managers are the drivers of firms, and they face many key challenges. These include keeping track of costs in a firm, responding quickly to changes in their firms, and staying connected to reality on the ground when leading larger firms. We also saw an important part of driving firms is to set the way forward, plan, and then keep things on track, control. In the next few chapters, we're going to look at whether, and if so how, accounting can help managers better engage with the economic and business realities of their firms. This will be in relation to keeping track of costs in a firm, Chapter 6, making and communicating short-term plans, Chapter 7, responding quickly to surprises, Chapter 7, making short-term decisions, Chapter 8, predicting the future and supporting long-term decisions, Chapter 8. The question we need to keep asking ourselves as we read the remaining chapters of this study guide is how well do we think accounting helps or perhaps hinders managers to be able to do these things well? Managers need to personally engage with and understand reality for themselves if they're going to be able to lead and manage their firms. How can management accounting help them do this? In the next chapter, we will look at the challenging issue of how accounting may help or hinder managers keep track of costs in a firm that is full of people spending the money of other people.